All right, so now we're finally at the point where we can get to some of the questions that I get most frequently coming across my desk. And I'm going to go through a couple of these very briefly. One of the questions I get is, do you get any negative side effects? And sometimes when you research online, you'll find that, oh, there were some different things that were concerning and whatnot. In general, I'm going to go ahead and make a blanket statement and say it is very, very rare for us to experience what we call side effects. In the vast majority of cases, side effects are derived from protocols that are more come to by guesswork rather than through an EEG neuroanalysis. So what do I mean by that? We know how to analyze EEGs and we know how to design protocols specifically for you. And that's not true of every single place that does neurofeedback. And so a lot of the side effects that you see coming out of some of the literature are coming because people were kind of guessing at a protocol and they chose the wrong one. So at the Neurovation Center, we really don't get those. There are things that we get that are called abreactions, which I would explain to folks when they come in, for instance, with a person that has trauma. Neurofeedback has a very unique ability to reintegrate a person's brain patterns, electrical rhythms, in a way that could cause a person that's been suppressing their memories to re-experience them. Now, that's not entirely a bad thing, and we provide a supportive environment for that, but in some cases, people would consider that to be a negative side effect. It's not. It's a part of the healing process. And there's other things that I could use as examples, but overall, what I would want to say is there really are no side effects because there's very little, if any, risk to doing neurofeedback at all. See, neurofeedback is completely passive. In other words, there's nothing active about it. We're not shocking anybody. There's no electrical current going into your brain. There's nothing that makes you uncomfortable whatsoever. Literally, it's a very kind of elegant dialogue that's going on between your brain, my computer, and a TV screen. And in the end, I've kind of said the only downsides that you might get from neurofeedback is going to end up being if there's a cost, if insurance doesn't cover it, or the amount of time that you may spend in it relative to the benefit that you have, which I'll address in the bottom. Second, question of medications and neurofeedback. People ask us all the time, do I have to be on meds or off of meds when I do neurofeedback? And the answer is, when you come in for neurofeedback, I do not expect you to change anything. You can come in if you're on medications. We do all of our analysis work while you're on medications. We don't want you to change anything. And one of the things that I have to tell everyone is this is not a medical center here. We do not prescribe medications. And so any decisions that are made between you and your prescriber. However, we can dialogue with you about your goals and what you would like to see in terms of outcomes. One of the beauteous things about working with neurofeedback, yes, I made that word up, is the fact that with neurofeedback, most of the time, people are able to back off on their medications, get to a minimum of medications needed, and in many cases, they can come off of it. But again, that's something that's determined by you as to whether or not that's one of your goals or your objectives of decreasing your medications, changing your meds, or getting off of them entirely. But we can work with you on that throughout the process. Another question is, how long until we see changes? I kind of addressed this in the process. Oftentimes, by the time you get to 15 appointments, we're seeing about a 10 to 30% improvement in your symptomology. By the time I'm getting to 35 or so, I typically see somewhere in the area of 40 to 50% improvement. And our goal is to always get you down to at least a 50% or more. Now, that is going to be significantly impacted by the nature of what it is that we're training. Different features in the brain will respond, take maybe longer or less time. If people have a lot of medications, that's going to extend the amount of time that it takes for me to do what we need to do. Depends on age. Bottom line is if you're an old guy like me, you got a lot of time for those patterns to get lodged into your head. But if you're young and you're 6 or 7, then the interesting thing is those kids change pretty quickly and oftentimes are closer to a 35 session discharge. So how long to see changes? It will vary from person to person and from the issues that we're dealing with, age, medications. But in general, I've said between 35 and 65 appointments is what I need to get the job done. Question of insurance and coverage. Does insurance cover? Answer is sometimes. Sometimes yes, sometimes absolutely no. Sometimes it's hard to predict. Now on this, it's important to realize there's a very specific code that must be billed for this. You cannot treat it as just a therapy code. And the code we use is 90876 is the code that we use. It's an integrative biofeedback and psychotherapy modality that can be used in a mental health environment. Now, I encourage you that if you want to know if your insurance covers this, talk to my office. You can talk to Wendy or Jason or somebody else in admin, and they are experts. If it can be covered, we will get it covered. Trust me on that one. We very much want for insurance to do this. I can tell you straight up front, Medicaid covers this code. So if you have Husky, please come on and visit with us. It's one of the perks of doing it. Some of the other insurance companies will have to figure it out, but I encourage you to come in. Then when it comes down to out-of-pocket costs, again, this is something that I don't want to hide from anyone. I want all of the upfront costs very clear and easily accessible to you. That's your right. It's my obligation to disclose that data to you. The way that I work, and just so that everybody's aware of this, I feel very strongly in this field that a part of my calling and my work, the ministry that I do to bring hope, healing, and wholeness into people's lives, is that I can bring this to as many people as I possibly can. So the way that I have set up the Neurovation Center has been to provide absolutely top tier services to the widest group of people, bringing together extremely excellent clinicians and different staff members that are here in a great environment. And I'm not one of those people that thinks it's got to be either or. So ultimately, even though there are going to be out-of-pocket expenses, I really encourage you to go look elsewhere. Because if you compare our prices with anyone else in the field, you will find, number one, that we are probably half the cost of anyone else out there in that area. And our services, frankly, are as good, if not better, than anyone else that's out there. So I really kind of hand that out there. Out-of-pocket costs, there's two places where you're going to find them. The first one is the QEEG, and then the second one is going to be for the treatments. Now on the EEGs, nobody ever pays for this from insurance companies, not even Husky Medicaid. On this, we charge $300. That's the out-of-pocket cost. And please keep in mind that if you come here, you have an initial QEEG and almost definitely 2 follow-ups. So over the course of your whole time here, the minimum out-of-pocket expense will be about $900. Now, on this, I have made a commitment that no one will ever not receive treatment at my office because they cannot afford a QEEG. It's my promise. I will ask for folks to do what they can, to maybe pay what they can. I have a sliding scale, and we offer payment plans so that this becomes something that's accessible to you. The other thing that I can say about the QEEGs is once you start coming, if you're faithful and you come more than twice a week, that price goes down. I want to reward people for being really serious about their own treatment. If you want to get better, I want you to get better, and I'll meet you. I'll meet you somewhere in there. If you can get up to like 2.5 times average a week, you get that for free. So it's entirely possible you'll never have to pay for that again. That goes for everybody. So please know we do everything we can to keep that down. And frankly, the value of this, given the quality of our neuroanalysts, far, I could probably charge closer to $2,000 for this, and that's what it's worth. This is a high quality product. The other thing is the treatments. All right, here we go. I'm just going to put it out there. All right, if you want to get treated and there's no insurance coverage whatsoever, I charge $3,000 for 35 appointments. $3,000 for 35, and that includes the review and the QEEG. Remember I said before there's ways to kind of get this down, but that includes the QEEG at the 15-session review. And again, I challenge you to find anywhere that's going to be a better price. At any other location, in most cases, I know for a fact that you're looking at anywhere between $5,000 and $10,000. So I know it sounds like a lot, but also we have payment plans for this as well. You can pay it off early and get a discount, or you can pay it off over time. That allows you to handle it. Anywhere from 3 to 5 months you can take to pay that off while you're doing the training. So we really try to do as much as we can to help you to do it. And again, to get more detail on that, please feel free to call up the office. Full disclosure on any of this. And I also encourage you to call up, check in on what your insurance is able to do. There might be a couple of things here and there that I didn't cover, that are relative to, copays or deductibles from your insurance, but that's very important that you get a chance to look at. And then the final thing that I would look at is just kind of looking at, prognosis and outcomes. And people are always asking me, and especially if they feel like they're paying out of pocket, what's the prognosis? Is it going to be good? All I can tell you is in the vast majority of cases, we have great outcomes. I can probably count on all of my fingers. And again, we've treated over 3,000 people in neurofeedback so far in the last 10 years. I can probably count on two hands the number of individuals that have had zero outcomes whatsoever. And in almost every one of those cases, they're extreme kinds of cases that don't have a good prognosis to begin with, or we don't know that it's going to work. Things like pain syndromes or things like that. But in the vast majority of cases, when I'm dealing with anxiety, ADHD, mood issues, trauma, our outcomes are fantastic. Like I said, about 85 to 90% of the folks that are, falling into those categories and consistently coming in are going to get that 50% reduction in symptomology. It's a phenomenal outcome. People coming in and being severe and having, debilitating effects on their lives, and they're leaving saying, it happens once in a while, it's no big deal. And that's the kind of change that we'd like to bring about for you. But again, I can never promise outcomes. I wish that I could. The reality is, if I stood here and I promised to you that neurofeedback could fix everything, I'd be lying to you. That's the bottom line. If anybody says that that's the case, they'd be lying. I can pretty much put a cap on just about anybody and get something for you. I'm not trying to say otherwise. I mean, I can train anybody for performance enhancement. I can train it for calming you, and I can use it clinically in order to address the symptoms associated with mental health disorders. And so almost every time I train somebody, regardless of what reason they're coming in for, they report improvements, clarity of thought, better memory, less anxious, more relaxed. Those are just kind of generalized outcomes. So we have good outcomes, and yet I do have to kind of caveat it and say there are cases where doing neurofeedback will not exactly get to the essence or the heart of what it is that brought you in here for. But what I can promise you is, if that's the case for you, my commitment is to work with you to figure out next steps. You can use neurofeedback at that point as a bit of a rule out, and then you can figure out how to take next steps, whether that involves a change in medication, the use of medication, or other options. But those are things that we're happy to walk with you through as well. So those are a list of our frequently asked questions. Again, I certainly invite you to come by the Neurovation Center to give me a call if you have any further questions. And I'll look forward to, once again, having a chance to meet you.